I apologize for my back. I apologize for the stand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, folks, one of the most remarkable sentences I've heard uttered by the presidential campaign organization of Senator McCain was uttered last night by John's campaign manager, a guy named Rick Davis. He said, "This election is not about issues." That's what he said. Well, in a strange sense, it's not about issues, it's about the lives of the American people. It's about whether or not you can fill up your gas tank. It's about whether or not, as that adjustable rate mortgage changes and at the same time your wife or husband in a two-wage earner family loses their job, you lose your house. It's about those people in this state particularly who find themselves in bankruptcy because of health care bills and or losing their home because of foreclosure. It's about so many of you and people you know who all last spring sweated bullets in terms of could you come up with the tuition for the fall for your son or daughter. It's about all of you and all Americans who every single day worry about whether or not at their job their employer is going to drop their health care policy. They worry about whether or not, if they have their own policy, as the rates continue to go up, can they pay it? This is beyond the 48 million people who have no health insurance, and it keeps rising. You know, people say to me that, people can go to emergency room. Let me tell you something. Those of us who have health insurance, and I've had over $1 million in bills just for me by today's numbers. I had 2 cranial aneurysms, a major embolism. I spent a total of 59 days in ICU. I was, like many of you, in the hospital recovering for 7 months from those things. I've had other things happen to me, and I know what medical bills are. When I lost my wife and daughter, my 2 kids were badly injured, and all the time it took for their recovery. Well, let me tell you something. I had insurance. All I worried about was the copay and the health of my children. But I promise you, people who don't have health insurance, they know the cost of what they need. There's people going to bed tonight in Sarasota, staring at the ceiling and looking at their pregnant wife who's asleep on their left or right side, and knowing, literally not figuratively, if the baby's premature, a premature baby costs an average $350,000. They know that their home, their business, their literal livelihood is at stake. They know what it costs for a mastectomy. They know what it costs and what it will do to their lives. The fear in which they live, the anxiety they have, is palpable. It is real. Ask anybody, or any of you who don't have health insurance, tell your neighbor what it's like. I have never seen a time in my years as a United States Senator since I was 29 years old. I have never seen a time when so many people have been knocked down and the government has done so little to help them back up. As a matter of fact, they put obstacles in their way. John McCain has a proposal. Those of you who get health insurance from your employer, he proposes that a dollar value be attached to that, just like your wages. That it be treated as income, and you're taxed on that. So if your health care policy adds up to $14,000 a year, then that is added to your income. If it adds up to $5,000 a year, that's added to your income, and it's taxed. this is real serious stuff, man. This is life and death stuff. The Republican candidates talk about how they are going to, in fact, help with jobs. Yet, they're going to continue to give tax breaks to companies that go overseas. Again, it's not just about, it's not, all kidding aside, I'm not looking for your response to be, you know, this is just straight stuff, man. I didn't get into this deal. I never aspired to be vice president. I did not get into this deal for any other reason than I can tell you there's never been an election, no matter how old or young you are in this crowd. I guarantee you, without fear of contradiction, there's never been an election that is more consequential than this one. It's not because of Barack, it's not because of me. It's because of where we are today. So ladies and gentlemen, when the Republican candidate says, his staff says, this is not about issues, it is about our future. It is about whether or not we're going to enable this country to get back up again. It's about whether or not we're going to give people a fighting chance. It literally is about the reality or the lack of reality about the American dream. Look, I was raised in a household like many of you. My mother had certain basic things she drove into us. Joey, nobody's better than you, and you're no better than anybody else. Everybody in America has an equal chance. Everybody can do what they want. But ladies and gentlemen, literally, not figuratively, that American dream is slipping from the grasp of more and more people. Have you ever seen a time, those of you who are old enough, have you ever seen a time in the last 5 decades where there's been such anxiety and angst among hard-working middle-class people? It's not just about the guy that I come from, the people I represent who work on the line. It's all the people all the way up the line. It's people with college degrees. It's people who've done everything by the numbers. Every single thing they've done in their life. They've done it because they were told, and they believe, as I did, if you work hard enough, if you're decent in what you do, then there's nothing that can stop you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the literal measure of whether or not the American dream works is whether or not those firefighters and cops, whether those teachers and assembly line workers, whether those people who wear a white collar like my dad did as salesmen, whether those people who in fact are out there every day putting in 40, 50, 60 hours a week, combined incomes of husband and wife working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. It's whether or not they can keep their house. It's whether or not they can look their kid in the eye and say, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. It's not that the other team's not a decent bunch of people, but I swear to goodness, I don't think they get it. I don't think they get it. This is not a gimmick. But when John was asked what middle class is, he said, well, people under $5 million. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. What are they talking about? $5 million. Hey, did you sell for $500,000? Huh? Let me tell you my definition of middle class. My definition of middle class, maybe it's because of the way I grew up. My definition of middle class, literally not figuratively, is a family that can't afford to go 2 weeks to 3 weeks without a paycheck, without getting in real trouble. That's just not poor folk. That's just not people making below the average, the median income of $48,000 a year. That's husbands and wives with 2 kids making $75, $80, $90, $100, $125,000 a year. That's people trying to figure out. Look, I ride home on that train every night. I commute from Wilmington to Washington. I've done it now over 7,000 times. Literally. I know you think that may